Hello, my name is Alex Isles and welcome to St Aidan's Church at Bamburgh. Now, the reason why Bamburgh is so important to Northumbrian history is not just about the castle. The fortress on top of the rock just over there, which you can see in the distance, has so much importance to Northumbrian history, but its importance would be less if it wasn't for St Aidan and St Aidan's Church. Now, this is all connected, and in another video I think you'll remember me saying about the story of the Northumbrian kings. So the Northumbrian kings are Germanic Anglo-Saxons. They come up from Lincolnshire under Aidan, who comes up with 3 longships, and he takes Lindisfarne. When he takes Lindisfarne, his then people take Bamburgh slightly later, and once they've taken Bamburgh Castle, they then take over more and more of Northumbria. His conquests are then bedded in by his grandson Aelfrith, and then Aelfrith's son Oswald is the one who will be important in this story here. So Aelfrith dies when Oswald is just 13 years old. He dies in battle, and Oswald and his family have to flee, and they flee to Iona. And the reason why is because his maternal grandfather is the King of Dalmatia, which is the kingdom on the west coast of Scotland, near around where modern day Glasgow is and that part of northern Britain. So he grows up amongst the Irish monks who are at Iona, and he learns about Celtic Christianity. He becomes a fervent believer, and he goes and he fights amongst the Irish as a warlord, and he has a large war band, and he is living out there and probably would have continued being this migratory warlord throughout his life had not his uncle Edwin died in battle against the Welsh warlord again, Cadwalla. Now when Cadwalla kills Edwin kills Edwin, Oswald comes back across and he retakes his kingdom at the Battle of Heavensfield, and he kills Cadwalla at Heavensfield and then retakes Northumbria. Now when he retakes Northumbria, he wants to bring his faith across, and so he calls out to the monks of Iona and he asks them to send a missions trip to Northumbria to help convert it to Christianity. When they send the first monk to Bamburgh and to Northumbria, the monk comes across and he starts trying to convert the Northumbrians. But there are language barriers. They speak Germanic Anglo-Saxon, he speaks Irish, and alongside that as well, his whole mission eventually grinds to a halt, and he goes back to Iona and he says, there's no point, these people are fully of the devil, they're so warlike, they're so difficult, we should just give up the English and there's no point in trying to convert them to Christianity. While he's doing this massive spiel about how the English are impossible to convert to Christianity, a small voice picks up in this synod, and this voice is Aidan. And Aidan says, well, if you'd shown them the milk of human kindness rather than maybe the meat of complex theology, they would have converted to Christianity. And the whole synod there, the meeting at Iona, turns around and decides that Aidan is the right man. And so they take Aidan and they send him across now, and Aidan would have known the young Oswald. He would have known Oswald's family. And he comes across to Northumbria and he makes his new mission. And he builds in 654 AD a wooden church on this site, and it becomes St Aidan's Church. Close enough to Bamburgh to be important, but far enough away to actually build his missions trip. And then from there he requests that he can have Lindisfarne to become his island where he establishes his monastery. So from there, Aidan really develops Northumbria, and he goes around preaching and bringing the gospel to the Northumbrians. And this is hugely important because the Northumbrians take to Christianity as Aidan now looks to convert the normal folk of Northumbria. He starts working with them, and alongside this as well, he works closely with Oswald. Oswald regularly actually translates for Aidan, because initially Aidan can't speak the Germanic language. So Oswald will come in and he will translate the messages, and he will preach as well alongside Aidan, giving extra strength to their mission and extra credibility as well to this Irish preacher here in Northumbria. This is hugely successful, and the Northumbrians come in droves, new churches are built, and the whole mission seems to be going from strength to strength. Until after 8 years of Oswald's rule, Oswald goes down into Mercia, fights against King Penda of Mercia, who is a ferocious pagan king at this time. And when he fights against King Penda, Penda kills Oswald in battle, and it seems then as if the mission trips will fail. And when this happens, his body is desecrated and there is a whole period of instability, and Aidan continues to hold together the Christian mission up here in Northumbria. And as he holds together the Christian mission, he sees the accession of Oswald's brother Oswiu to the throne. You know, there's a lot of Osses here and it's a very complicated royal line. And as Oswiu comes to the throne of Northumbria, you see this new kingdom coming through. But there's a lot of difficulty because another royal candidate has come to the throne, and this guy is a guy called Oswin, who's descended from another rival branch of Northumbrian kings. Now Oswin is a very godly man, and him and Aidan get on very well. They're deep friends, and Oswin looks to Aidan as a spiritual mentor. In fact, he gives Aidan a fantastic horse that Aidan can ride around on. Now, at this time, the Irish monks and the Christian monks, they wouldn't ride on horseback. It was not seen as something you did. It was seen as something a noble would do, a warlord, a powerful individual. But Oswin wants to honour Aidan, so he gives him this amazing horse to ride on. Now, when he gives him this horse to ride on, Aidan is going around the place, and he is going along the roads of Northumbria, and he sees a beggar, and he gets off and he hands the horse and all of its gold bridle and saddle and all of the amazing decoration it would have had on it to this beggar, and just gives it away. And Oswin then has a little bit of an argument next time he sees him, and he says, look, why did you do that? You know, you could have had, you know, any horse in the whole of the kingdom given to that man, but why did you give away my gift? And Aidan simply just turns around and explains that God loves that man more than any horse. Oswin then, for the rest of the evening, sits quietly in his hall, and then eventually goes over and apologizes to Aidan and says, I was wrong, I was arrogant and proud. And at that point, Aidan suddenly just gets a message from God and cries, and knows that Oswin isn't long for this world, because a more humble, gentle man probably wouldn't last as long. And the conflicts with his distant relation Oswiu was coming. Oswiu then invades Oswin's territory of Yorkshire, and when he invades it, Oswin, seeing that Oswiu has the great army, disbands his men and goes into exile. But Oswiu organizes that he is betrayed by one of his close lords, his retainers, and when he's betrayed, he's murdered. And this breaks Aidan's heart, and Aidan is up here in Bamburgh, and just 10 days after the murder of Oswin, Aidan is feeling sick. He is not very well. He rests against one of the posts of the church that he built, and they build a protective cover around where he is, just so that he can rest. And he slowly passes away beside his church, resting upright against one of the wooden beams of the church, and then passes away. When he passes away, that beam is said to have been miraculously preserved and actually stopped from burning down in future time. And he dies resting against the church of St. Aidan and passes away. And when he passes away, it's said during legend that there was a young boy in the Scottish borders who was looking after his sheep, and he saw a soul being taken into heaven by angels, and that was St. Cuthbert, who then later on came down to Lindisfarne and became a very important Anglo-Saxon saint here in the northeast. But Aidan altogether, from his preaching to the Northumbrians, to his miracles, to his close friendship with Oswald, was one of the most important characters when it comes to the early medieval story of Northumbria and the creation of the Christian heritage of not only Northumbria but also England as a whole. So I really hope you've enjoyed this story today, and I've been able to show you something about the Dark Ages, the story of Christianity in the Northeast, and this amazing character Aidan, this saint who basically had such an impact on English history, even though he was, for all intents and purposes, a foreigner, an Irishman, who came across and showed a heart for the Northumbrians and their souls. And that this story has really awakened an excitement about the Dark Ages within you. Please share the story with your friends, like and subscribe, and put some questions in the comments that I can hopefully answer about the Dark Ages and also about Aidan, Oswald and the Northumbrians as a whole. Until next time, stay safe and well, and I look forward to speaking to you in the near future.